What's up, guys? We are back with another Super 7 Ultimates Turtles Wave 5 review, taking a look at the other good guy in this wave. We have got Ray FILLET on deck today, and I am really looking forward to this guy because he is not only one of my favorite vintage figures for, well, as far as non-Turtles goes, but he also comes with a buddy, and I've said it a million times. Any Turtles figure that came with a little buddy was instantly cooler, and we're going to see if that remains true here as well, just like it did with Muckman. So we've got him here in our typical fashion packaging. So you've got him there in the slipcover, green ooze slipcover with the manhole cover on top. Turtles logo, of course, on the back. Pop that off, though, and you've got him there in all of his monstrous glory in that big window. Turtles logo down there on the bottom. You've got your green brick graffiti motif all over it. And then the back of the box gives us our bio for the fist fighting fish. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Super 7 Ultimates Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Wave 5, Ray FILLET, maybe, not sure yet, still working on it, but maybe my favorite figure in the line so far. I know that's kind of crazy because, you know, I'm a Leo guy and we've got my favorite version of Leo, but this figure is so much fun. I'm really having a hard time putting him down. He's just a lot of fun, and maybe that's what it comes down to. Probably maybe the most fun figure in this line for me so far. I was always a big Ray FILLET fan, one of my favorite vintage figures, so you know, it's to be expected that I'm going to have a lot of fun with this guy. He is not without his issues. He does have some stuff we're going to discuss, but this is a pretty faithful reimagining. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. We've got a head that is surprisingly articulated. Like, it moves a lot better than I expected. He can look down slightly, but he can look up really, really good. And this, of course, is because he has such this crazy fat neck. And then you've got really, really nice tilt. Full rotation, of course. Arms out at the shoulders. They, of course, can go all the way back and forth, but you've got to watch out for his, you know, fin here. We've got our single jointed, it's about 90, rotating elbow. You've got vertical hinges on these hands. These trigger finger hands are vertically hinged. Rotation. The waist is unfortunately limited, though. It's just a twist. Like, it's another one of those instances where I'm gonna kind of, you know, harp on the fact that they could probably do something more with this by giving them more of a Mythic Legion style of torso joint, even if it's just a single buck like this. You know, he's only one piece. He has no diaphragm cut. And I don't necessarily need that. If he could just go forward and backward a little bit, I would be happier. As it stands, he really can just twist, and that's it. The legs, they are okay, but they are kind of loose. I'm not so sure that I'm having a problem balancing him because of this, or if it's more of a top-heavy situation. Because he can go all the way out, all the way forward, and hold his legs there just fine. But when you start to pose him, you are potentially going to see an issue with him wanting to shift oddly because all of the weight is on the top. There's just no doubt about it. So I'm not so sure if the hips are loose or not, or if they're just not as robust as they need to be in order to support such a heavy frame. We do have a kind of a squeaky thigh cut. We've got single jointed, about 90-ish, rotating knees, and then we've got rocker. And then we've got hinges down at those ankles, which is pretty good. You are going to have to, of course, play with these feet because they are, I mean, they're enormous. So the feet are going to pose, no pun intended, a challenge if you're trying to get them into like a walking pose or a running pose, just because they're so big. And then you've also got a little bit of articulation at his tail. It's not a bendy tail. It's just a swivel back here for the short little stub. So he is pretty normal for an Ultimates. I really like the head articulation. I think it's tremendous, honestly. It gives him a lot of character. But the hips are... Again, I'm not so sure if they're loose or if they're just not strong enough for how big he is. Otherwise, though, I mean, the legs do stay. Like, there's no problem there. It's not an issue. But watch your balance just to make sure you've got him centered. Otherwise, you might see him sort of topple. But that said, you know, they absolutely nailed the look. And this is one of those figures that is incredibly unique in the Playmates line. He didn't look like his show counterpart, for example. You know, that was in many ways almost a different character, right? But he had this very specific look. He's got these crazy, crazy colors. And of course, Ray FILLET did come in a couple variants. There was one variant that didn't change color, and this, you know, this figure doesn't change color. There were two variants that did change color and things like that. So there were a few different versions. You might have one that's yellow. You might have one that's like purple and red or red and purple. but it's still very, very much the same figure. And I think really what they did with the colors is pretty tremendous. There is a great deal of shading all over the skin. So he's this sort of teal color to begin with, but then there's this slightly darker blue that's all throughout the musculature on the arms and the legs. You've got this super bright yellow, you got orange all over him, more blues, more greens, you know, even greens down here on the fins down here for his shoes. He even got texture down here on the bottom, which is probably entirely unnecessary, but they went ahead and did that anyway. You've got the super orange belt, and for the most part, paint on him is really, really clean. We've got our fin on the back, and this is another area where the paint is really clean, really crisp, and there's just a lot of it back here. Honestly, there's a lot of paint on this figure, more so than I was expecting for what he needs to be. So a lot of this blue, a lot of this green, and then of course that kind of leads up to his head sculpt, which, I mean, let's be honest, this is where all the character is on this figure, because there's just so much going on up here. He does have a really large head. We've got these asymmetrical, you know, ears, whatever kind of ears those are supposed to be. Even they have paint on them up top, and the paint all over the face is of course very reminiscent of the vintage figure. He's got that big toothy smile, kind of like inky almost, so those super white teeth with all of the black kind of oozing out, and then a very happy but maybe menacing type of smile, and, you know, eye expressions going on here, big white eyes with the blue pupils in there, and he just looks tremendous. I mean, they even painted up his watch, you know, one of those things that's on the vintage figure that you may have missed. He doesn't have all of that sort of gross, nasty detail that some of the other figures have, but there's a lot to him. There's a ton of texture all over the torso. I'm not so sure if I would have preferred them to go with the purple version versus the yellow, but I do understand why they went with this route, and I think he looks good. The colors do really stand out. I will say that the painted shoulders do not necessarily match the torso, because the torso is yellow, the arms are not. So they painted this is cast, and then this is painted. It's close, but up close you're gonna notice it. Otherwise, it's not really that big of a deal. Like from back here, it's probably not so bad. When you get right up on him, it's pretty noticeable. Otherwise, I mean, I do think they absolutely nailed his look. In the few ways that I'm kind of unhappy with a little bit of his articulation, I am 100% happy with his look. I think they truly killed it, and he literally is just that vintage figure reimagined in a bigger size with a lot more detail. And speaking of size, you know, we have to do at least a quick comparison to other figures in the line, because he is a big figure, but he's more wide than he is tall, because he was always kind of a broad figure, and of course, you know, the fin makes him even bigger. So he's the widest figure that we've got now. He's slightly taller than the Turtles, but he's overall bulkier than all of them. And then he's definitely shorter than your Muckmans, your Rocksteady, of course, and then things like Bebop. And then here he is with, you know, for size comparison to the vintage figure, since the vintage figures, of course, you know, it's own size, they're their own form factor. You can see just how much taller. He's about, you know, 1 3/4 of the same height of our vintage figure. So there's a lot of figure here, a lot of Ray to go around. Now, as far as accessories goes, Ray has a pretty solid spread. It's all of the vintage stuff. Well, he didn't have a ton of vintage stuff back in the day, but he has all the hallmarks here, and then a couple of extra things that really ratchet him up, because again, he came with a buddy just like Muckman came with one, and it always makes him cooler. It just works. That's the formula. I didn't make it. That's just how it works. So to start with, we do have an extra head sculpt here, and it's pretty similar in terms of overall sizing to the regular one. It's just got a different expression. So here's our standard. And you can see he's kind of got that classic big toothy smile, but this one has a more furrowed brow, and then you've got the sort of snarl, a little bit of a growling expression, and then the open mouth. Really, really happy with this one. It's kind of hard to pick which one I prefer, but this gives you good options. Then we get some extra hands, so he's got those vertically hinged trigger finger hands on him in the box. You do get a set, of course that's 2, fists, and then you get a set of standard regular gripping hands. We get his, you know, like Manta Ray gun. This time it's of course fully painted, so it's orange and black, and I really like this color scheme. It's a weird gun, but of course that's Turtles, and it's very much themed to him, so I'm really happy to see this. We get his little buddies, of course. So we get the one and only Scarfish here, and this guy was unpainted back in the vintage line, so he's got this sort of, I mean, he's very Halloween-y, really, but he's got black and yellow for the eyes, black in the mouth, and then a little white for the teeth, and this guy is just an angry starfish dude. And then we get fish sticks So this was his actual, you know, little buddy back in the vintage line. I guess he technically came with 2, and this guy is pretty wild. So this is the first time he's ever been painted up, and he is fully painted. And this guy, you know, kind of lets you show off some of what maybe you missed in the vintage line, because of course that thing was unpainted. So maybe you didn't realize that he has dynamite strapped to his back, and he's like very much holding onto that plunger. I really don't know. He seems like he's a take no prisoners kind of guy, but I really like him. He does have a swiveling head. That's about it, though. He's basically just a big slug figure, but he doesn't need to do anything. I'd be just happy if he didn't move at all and was just fully painted, because just seeing these guys in a bigger size, covered in paint, is really cool. And then we also get this. You get this big, very, very plush rope with anchor on it, and the anchor's done up in a nice, like, super shiny silver, and of course this gold is like ultra metallic, so you can use this, you know, to capture a bad guy or choke someone out or something. So I'm pretty happy with this. I mean, honestly, this rope is pretty plush. I'm happy to see that. And then we get a weapons rack, and this is another instance of a figure who didn't have a vintage weapons rack getting one. So his is orange this time around, and it's got the frame is the actual rope itself leading to the anchor with the scarfish with the gun on it as well. So this one's pretty cool, just based on how they made what he comes with work in the confines of making that rack. So he's got a lot of cool stuff here. It's certainly not as much as Leo, but it's all really impactful. And again, you can't beat the buddies. So yeah, overall, really happy with him still. The only true gripes I have about him are ultimately that the waist, I just feel like there should be more articulation there. A waist twist and an unmoving torso is still very outdated at this point. And the legs, while they aren't loose, I just don't know that they are fully capable of supporting him entirely. I still don't really have any issues with him. I've been able to pose him just fine, but I am unsure if they are truly up to the task of holding up such a massive figure, because they do seem a little bit on the weak side at times. Otherwise, I do think he looks tremendous. I mean, they absolutely killed it from a design perspective. He looks pretty flawless, really, from top to bottom. And then, of course, he comes with a really great array of accessories. Fish sticks in particular is a huge selling point. You know, I'll say it again, any Turtles figure with a buddy was instantly in the cool club, and that holds true for Ultimates as well. And Ray Fillet is a really welcome addition to the collection, and his color scheme and his design is definitely going to make him stand out. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates TMNT Ray Fillet. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.